Picture the scene. It is 1950. New York City is under the control of Lucky Luciano, or at least it should be. But there is a new mayor in the city, William O'Dwyer, a man who genuinely believes he can clean up Harlem and the rest of Manhattan from organized crime. He does not understand one fundamental thing. You do not challenge Lucky Luciano and walk away unscathed. This is not a warning. This is a statement of historical fact that would be proven time and again throughout Lucky's career. The man who reorganized the entire American mafia, who transformed rival families into a single unified structure, is not someone you ignore in a public meeting. Lucky had spent years building a network so perfect, so intricate, that every move he makes seems inevitable. Every decision he takes affects hundreds of people. Every word he speaks resonates through the entire city like a shockwave that no one can stop. This is not hyperbole. This is the reality of power when wielded by someone who has spent decades perfecting the art of control. Lucky Luciano is not like other men. He does not think in terms of weeks or months. He thinks in systems. He thinks in networks. He thinks in the long game. Everything begins when the mayor convenes a press conference. He speaks about his new zero-tolerance policy against organized crime, with the confidence of a man who believes democracy will protect him. He announces salary increases for the police to attract better officers, reforms in the judicial system, and personally promises to end underground gambling operations, prostitution, and narcotics controlled by the mafia. It is a declaration of war, but Dwyer believes he has the democratic right to do it. After all, he was elected. The law is on his side, public opinion as well. What could possibly go wrong? This is the fatal flaw of O'Dwyer's thinking. He believes that the rules that apply to ordinary men apply to people like Lucky Luciano. O'Dwyer does not comprehend that in New York, the democratic laws are merely wet paper. When Lucky Luciano decides that something is not going to happen, it does not happen. He had seen judges change their sentences with a simple phone call. He had seen journalists abandon stories after a friendly visit from his men. He had seen politicians change their minds when their campaign finances, suddenly dry, were threatened. Lucky Luciano understands something that most men never learn. True power is not about the ability to hurt people. That is the power of ordinary criminals. True power is about the ability to reorganize the reality of others. It is about making people act against their own apparent interests. It is about winning without anyone being able to prove that you have won. This is the power of a master strategist. This is the power that Lucky Luciano has cultivated over decades of careful observation and meticulous execution. Lucky Luciano is in his office when he receives the news of the mayor's press conference. He is not a man who shouts or bangs on tables. He simply listens. His advisors expect an explosion, an order to eliminate the mayor, to ruin his political career. But Lucky does something different. He smiles. It is the kind of smile that makes very dangerous men understand that a tragedy is about to happen, but not for him. Lucky has already won 100 battles like this. The mayor has just entered into a chess game against a master, a game being played on a board with rules only Lucky understands. The mayor does not even know how the pieces move. Lucky had spent his entire life perfecting the art of destroying his enemies without them seeing the blow coming. Now, with this public provocation from the mayor, he has the perfect excuse to demonstrate his power to everyone who needs to know. Within 24 hours, Lucky activates a network that takes years to build. He does not attack the mayor directly. That would be obvious, and Lucky is never obvious. Instead, he touches what really matters, the men who execute the mayor's will. The New York Police Department is not monolithic. There are those who work with the mafia for years, receiving regular payments, living a double life. There are those who simply close their eyes because they know that confronting the mafia is a death sentence. There are those who are merely sympathetic to the organization's interests. And there are those who secretly respect Lucky Luciano more than the mayor himself. These men are the key to everything. They are the gears that make the machine function. Without them, the mayor is powerless. With them compromised, the mayor cannot accomplish anything. Lucky begins to make calls, not direct threats, but invitations, messages delivered through intermediaries who understand exactly what is being communicated. The mafia controls gambling houses, drug operations, protection schemes. They have information about police officers, about their families, about their weaknesses, about their secrets. Lucky does not need to kill anyone to make his intention clear. This is where amateurs make their mistakes. They use violence. Lucky uses information and incentives. He simply allows the message to be understood through intermediaries. Any police officer who dedicates himself genuinely to the mayor's crusade will discover that life becomes much more complicated. Their children may have problems at school. Teachers may report behavioral issues. Their spouses may receive disturbing calls. Their friends may suddenly become unavailable. The mortgages on their houses may become problems. Banks may begin to ask uncomfortable questions. Insurance companies may find reasons to increase premiums. Small businesses may refuse service. These are not random events. These are carefully orchestrated consequences designed to communicate a simple message. Cooperation comes with a cost. It is not violence. It is not explicitly illegal. It is simply inevitable consequences of standing against the mafia. And Lucky knows that the police understand this language. They have lived in New York long enough to know how things really work. But Lucky does more than threaten. He offers alternatives. He makes it crystal clear that those who move away from the mayor's crusade, who discreetly sabotage investigations, who lose important documents, who report false information to their superiors, who look the other way, will be rewarded generously, very generously. Lucky has unlimited resources. He can offer what no police salary could ever offer: real security for the family, money for the children's education, a house in a better neighborhood, protection from harm, the guarantee that you are investing in something that will last. For a police officer earning perhaps $30 a week in 1950, money that would amount to perhaps $300 or more could be handed to them monthly. The amount of money that Lucky offers is simply unimaginable. It is enough to change the course of an entire life. It is enough to transform a poor cop into a man with real wealth. These men realize they have a choice: suffer harassment and threats, or profit handsomely from cooperation. The mayor, meanwhile, continues with his crusade. He does not see what is happening behind the scenes. He continues convening meetings, demanding action, threatening to fire officers who do not produce results. He believes his authority as an elected official gives him the power to command. He does not understand that authority is only as strong as the ability to enforce it. But results never arrive. Investigations disappear in bureaucracy. Evidence goes missing. Witnesses refuse to cooperate. Police officers who should be investigating the mafia seem to be investigating a ghost. They know where the narcotics are, but when they arrive at the location, they find only an empty room. The inventory has been moved. The suppliers have been warned. The operation has relocated. They know who the bosses are, but when they try to prosecute, judges postpone trials indefinitely. Evidence is deemed inadmissible on technical grounds. Witnesses change their statements. The system that the mayor believed would protect him is corrupted from top to bottom. Frustration begins to grow in the department. Men realize they are wasting time. They realize their efforts are completely futile against an enemy who can anticipate their every move. An enemy with resources that seem unlimited. An enemy with reach into every level of law enforcement and the judiciary. 24 hours pass, 48 hours pass, and then on the third day, one police officer after another begins to request a transfer. It is not a mass desertion that would attract much attention. Such an event would raise questions, it would appear suspicious. Instead, it is some here, some there. A man who worked 20 years in the narcotics division suddenly requests a transfer to the traffic division, where the risks are lower and life is easier. Another says he had a health problem and needs a position in a less stressful neighborhood. A third says his mother is sick and he needs to be closer to her. A fourth says he received a job offer in the private sector. A fifth simply gives up, requests resignation, leaves the department completely. And then comes another and another. Each one has a reason. Each reason sounds perfectly reasonable when heard separately. Each transfer request passes through administrative channels. Each resignation is processed. No one sees them as part of a larger pattern because they are designed not to appear that way. The pattern continues. Within a week, half a dozen senior officers disappear. Within 2 weeks, the number rises to double digits. Within 3 weeks, it reaches the high double digits. The Vice Division, which was supposedly the spearhead of the mayor's crusade against the mafia, becomes practically empty. The men who remain know that continuing there is being in a war they cannot win against an enemy that can destroy their lives in ways they cannot even adequately explain to their superiors. Some have families to feed. The temptation of Lucky's money becomes irresistible. Others have dreams to pursue. They see their careers in the police department as dead ends. All know that Lucky Luciano can turn those dreams into nightmares if they stand in his way. The pressure becomes unbearable. Some officers begin to develop health problems. Others report anxiety and depression. Still others simply decide that the pay is not worth the stress. The mayor finally begins to understand what is happening. He convenes emergency meetings with the police commissioner. He demands to know why his best agents request transfers, why his most dedicated officers are leaving. The police commissioner cannot explain it. He has no answers. No one can give a satisfactory answer. How do you explain that your men are afraid? How do you admit that the mafia has won without firing a single shot? How do you tell that Lucky Luciano, the man you publicly defied, has responded in a way so elegant, so perfect, so completely devastating that all the police can do is surrender? The mayor is furious, but his fury changes nothing. He cannot force men to stay if they do not want to stay. He cannot create police officers from nothing, and without police officers, his crusade is simply empty words. His authority is revealed as an illusion. His power rests entirely on the willingness of others to execute his orders. When those people decide to leave, he has nothing. Lucky never threatened the mayor personally, never put a gun to his head, never even spoke to him directly, never sent him a message. He simply understood a truth that O'Dwyer would never comprehend. You do not defeat Lucky Luciano through democracy, through law, or through public opinion. These are the tools of ordinary politics. Lucky operates on a different level entirely. You defeat Lucky Luciano by making clear that confronting him brings consequences you cannot bear. And Lucky did it in such a surgical, such a precise way that it seemed natural. The police officers left because they wanted to leave. They left because they perceived that they could not win. They left because they saw an opportunity for profit. They left because the stress became unbearable. No one could point to Lucky and say, "He forced us." There is no evidence of coercion. There are no written orders. There are no witnesses to threats. Everything seemed to be choice. That is the beauty of his method. There are no culprits, no obvious victims, only men who made what they believed to be rational decisions based on information that Lucky provided. This is the type of power that Lucky Luciano possessed. It was not simply the ability to kill. That is the power of an assassin or a common criminal. It was the ability to reorganize the reality of other people, to make them see the world as he wanted them to see it. to make them act against their own apparent interests because they genuinely believed it was in their best interest, to win without anyone being able to prove that he had won, to exercise dominion over an entire city without ever holding elected office. The mayor, O'Dwyer, continued in his position. He continued talking about his war against crime. He continued making speeches about law and order. But everyone in New York knew the truth. Lucky had won, and he had won in such a perfect way that it was practically invisible. The newspapers would publish stories about the police officers who left. The mayor would give statements about the difficulties of reforming entrenched institutions, but no one would connect the dots. No one would point to Lucky Luciano as responsible. It would simply be explained as a coincidence, as the natural result of working in a dangerous field, as a problem of low pay and insufficient resources. Within a month, the mayor's crusade against the mafia had practically disappeared. He could not move his pawns anymore because the pawns had disappeared from the board. The mafia's operations in Manhattan returned to normal. The gambling houses operated as before. The prostitution networks functioned as before. The narcotics flowed through the streets as before. The protection rackets operated as before. Everything returned to the status quo that Lucky had carefully constructed, and Lucky Luciano had proven a lesson that all of American organized crime would learn. Do not defy Lucky and walk away unscathed, because Lucky does not work with direct confrontation. That is not his style. Lucky works with systems, with structures, with the exploitation of human weaknesses and desires. He works with the truth that every man has a price, or at least has something he fears losing. It is a philosophy he has perfected over decades of careful study and meticulous practice. And now he was demonstrating it once more to the mayor, who had the audacity to ignore him. The lesson was clear to anyone who bothered to pay attention. But the mayor never quite understood what had happened to him.